say good morning, Tanya, but it is 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning here, and it's about
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock in the afternoon in
Yeah.
Vancouver. How are you? We were just quickly chatting before we got on, and I was telling you about I had a dream last night, and you were telling me about just recently you had not a dream, but you woke up in the morning and had a weird experience. So I think that's
Yeah,
where our topic's going to start today. I think we decided to stop and
absolutely.
get into it.
Yeah, we decided we're like, stop talking, press record. So the other day I woke up and sometimes, if I have nothing to do, I'll get up and I'll just kind of flip through social media or whatever. And this video came up of this woman that said, if I was a being and I was in spirit and someone said to you, if you want, you get to go to this place and you get to experience everything. You get to feel every emotion and you get to be sad and angry and upset and excited and in love. And it's so beautiful. And it's like everybody would be putting up their hand, I can't wait. Let me go have that experience. And it's not like that's a concept that I didn't understand before, but as soon as I watched the video, Spirit piped in and they were like, see? And they just showed life to me from such a different perspective, where it was like all of this is meant to be experienced and felt. So you and I talk so much about sort of the human experience and making sure that, we're going through the process. We talk about emotions and truly feeling them. And if we don't, it becomes stuck energy and all of these, sort of different things that we talk about. And I just found that really fascinating that and it's not like I go into an experience where I'm angry or someone's ticked me off and I'm upset about it. It's not like I go, "Oh my God, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be having this experience of anger." Or, "Ooh, I'm so excited to be going through grief. This is so wonderful. Thank you." I'm not, like, under no circumstances. Quite often I'm giving the finger to spirit and being like, "Fuck you. Why does this keep happening?" Even though I understand these concepts, right? But I just thought it was like, wow, what a way to look at things. But that's not, life needs to be learned backwards, not forwards, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the core of that is what we talk about all the time, really grounding ourselves and making sure that we are in the moment. So whether it's a happy or a sad kind of thing, we're actually connected to spirit, we're grounded, we're living through it in the way that we are, we're picking up the signs that we need to, we're getting all the learning from it, we're integrating it into our body well. So when we move forward on that path, that shit that we just had was worth it, or that high that we had, we felt and we utilized to
Yeah,
the maximum. It's actually making the most of life, whether it's good or bad, and realizing that having new experiences and new things, or the same experiences over and over again, whatever it is, that's the point of life. Life is there to be
yeah.
experienced. And even if you're not connected to spirit and you don't see things and you don't feel intuitive, you often are, even though you don't realize it. That's good. You're in the moment, you're going through. Andy and I talk about it a bit. We talk about trying to be in the now a bit more,
Yeah.
because he's very, in particular, so goal orientated. He gets up, he's so self-motivated, but part of self-motivation is seeing the end goal all the time. So you're always kind of to stay in that moment of think. Mind you, he feels his days and he definitely experiences life. Like,
Right.
he's
Yeah.
doing
Yeah,
so
he
much.
does.
And
Yeah.
which is great. But you can get in the pattern of always sort of looking forward or always looking in someone else's backyard to their experiences, going, hang on a minute, be in mine, like be in my
Yeah.
now.
And I've certainly heard different teachers, or even not teachers, just spiritual teachings in general, that will say, we're supposed to be happy, joyous, and free, and almost like you're doing something wrong if you're not being happy, joyous, and free. And
Life is
I've,
about love.
yeah, unconditional love, and we're just supposed to be here and be happy and joyful. I'm sorry, but that's just not how it goes, and that's not actually how spirit shows it to me in
Yeah.
what we're supposed to be experiencing, because we're supposed to be experiencing it all. And what that type of, I don't even want to call it a teaching, like a spiritual rule. I don't know. But it
Myth.
makes
It's a
me,
spiritual myth. It is.
yeah,
It's like a spiritual goal they're putting it out there, and they're like, here's hope. This is what you'll get like if you get to where I am.
right. And
Yeah.
it's like, no, because it would make almost feel like I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
It's
And we
like
wouldn't have
I
been
must.
given shit if we weren't meant to be in shit. Like there's a balance of love and hate. There's, all those things. The fact is, we're meant to experience it. That when you're talking about experiencing life, it's experiencing all of that. I do think the more aligned you are, the more you can handle the shit. And it doesn't mean that someone doesn't die and you cry in your room for a month and all those things either way. It's just how you feel about that afterwards and the learnings and teachings that you get. And I think that's what they should be teaching rather than teaching the falsity that everything's happy and roses. It's not. We all
Exactly.
get pissed off. We all get annoyed. We all have situations that we don't want. Some people live their whole life in a lot of misery. Their life wasn't unspiritual. They might have got more spiritual growth than someone who lived their life where everything was cushy and they're in a house with complete happiness. It's not the situation that you're in. It's the way you go through life and experience it to its fullest that matters, whether it's shit or whether it's good. It's just how it is.
Exactly. And one thing that they keep showing me, and you kind of touched on it, is like somebody may be more spiritually connected if they, live in misery. And one thing that they keep showing me is somebody that's like severely drug addicted or having severe mental health problems, is maybe homeless, living on the streets, that type of thing. And all of these people have family that has probably tried and tried and tried and tried, and there's nothing, earthly that they can do. What they're showing me, and I'm not saying it's fair, but that is that person chose that from a level of the experience.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say that in a way that's insensitive or to be like, oh, well, they chose that. Oh, well, that's so helpful to know. Thanks so much. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's just understanding, and that's why I say when spirit kind of came through with that, it was quite an interesting perspective to look at it and go, wow, it's about experiences. So that person is on a spirit level having that experience, which they in some way chose to experience on a spirit level. Am I saying this in a way that doesn't make me sound insensitive and like I'm spreading like acceptance sauce on
No.
spirituality? Okay.
No.
Because that's another one of my pet peeves is, oh, it was meant that way. Oh, God has a plan. Okay, yeah, maybe that's true, but I'm also having this extremely painful, like human experience. And just let me be human here and let's not sort of throw
Yeah.
acceptance sauce onto everything,
Yeah, 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 absolutely. It's interesting because as you were talking about that, I was getting like flashes up, and it was that the word have was what you have. And it's important to have experiences. And they were showing me that people concentrate too much on having stuff than having experiences. And so we spend so much time working and doing things to get to have the largest TV, the largest house, the
We
best
talked about
clothes.
that on the on series 2, I think.
Yeah, yeah. So if you want to hear more about that, go back to that. Well, I will post it in the bottom of what it was. But they're showing me that again. They're showing the haves, like we're
Yep.
too busy having stuff. And stuff is the big word that they're sort of putting in highlights for me. And they're saying what Tanya's brought to the table here, having experiences while we're on life. And so start looking at your own life and saying, am I experiencing it, or am I just packing it up with stuff to say, oh, I've had such a good life because I've got all this stuff. I've
Okay.
got a big house, a big thing. Like it's the haves rather than to have the experience. And really, once we realize we're on life to experience things, it doesn't mean don't have a nice house and don't have nice stuff. They're saying our focus is way too much on having stuff and the Joneses of who else has what than having an experience. And yeah, and also they're doing a big kind of solo number one. Your experience is your experience, and let that be your experience, and don't compare that to other people. Like, don't compare how much stuff you have, those sorts of things. And so when we're talking about someone who may be living on the streets, they may be living a happier life. I know this with Africa, actually. I was talking to some people over there. You could see they were more aligned, they were more in touch with themselves, and they were living in a one tiny little hut without running water or anything. And it doesn't mean everyone in this situation is, but some of the people that we associated with, they were the most in line people I've ever seen spiritually. And I just loved their attitude to life. They experienced life for every second that they were alive. They were so grateful, and it wasn't the same source that you're saying. It's not like the gratitude source, like if you're not grateful, that they had shit times. They wanted for more. They did all this sort of stuff, but they weren't so caught up in the haves. It was really, they kind of were living for the experience of every day and just soaked that up. And I did go home and change because of that. Like, it made a difference to my attitude of what I wanted out of life. Like, I definitely added more adventure to it, and more, going for walks and seeing things for what they were, rather than just zooming past every day. And I might have sidetracked there, but they just started to bring all
No,
this info in, so it had to be said. Yeah.
no, not at all. They're just, you and I talked about this a bit prior to coming on, but I keep getting these little, like, from spirit, these little, like, snippets of information where they're like, oh, and this, oh, and this. And I know you are too, but it's not quite coming together yet
Yes.
for what it is that they're sort of downloading. But one thing that they kept kind of showing me was the falsity, and it's just coming in really fast. The falsity in so many things. So the falsity in marketing, like, we are being sold so many products because everybody's kind of playing like this marketing, social media. Nobody's actually going on and being like, you know what? This is insane. Why are we doing this? Why are we dealing with stuff like this? Blah, 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 blah. But they're showing me it in so many places, in so many different areas, and we don't have people critically thinking. And here's an example. Right around when COVID happened, there was a whole bunch of hate going around about the police. I'm here to tell you guys that there's some bad police officers, but for the most part, we're all out there busting our balls, getting very traumatized, doing some very hard work that if people knew the reality of the world, they would be blown away. And the fact that they don't know the reality of the world is because we don't let them see it, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a falsehood in and of itself, that people don't really know what's actually going on in the world, which is, like, actually true stuff. But people would post these videos because everybody, has a camera now, and it would be this person fighting with the police, or the police fighting with this person and arresting them. And they were going all over social media. Now, I am not speaking to any particular video. I'm really not. But they would be like, oh my God, the police, they're this, they're that, and I'm like, hold on a second. I'm not going to judge this, and I'm not going to make a decision, because you don't know what they were told to the call on the radio. You don't know how many times they tried to warn that person or tell them to stop what they were doing before they handcuffed them and got into a fight with them. You don't know if they just got punched in the balls, and you don't see that on camera. Like, you don't know.
Yeah.
But then everybody's looking at that going, oh my God, the police are bad, making these snap decisions from this drip feed of information that they know absolutely nothing about. This is such a rant, that they know absolutely nothing about. And now everybody's a pro about how police officers are supposed to do things, and on and on. And it was so damaging. Now, I'm not saying that the police don't have improvement or there's areas that need to be improved. I'm not saying that. I'm merely speaking to people's snap judgments of this very tiny 3-minute snippet that's inflammatory, that somebody decided to post to be inflammatory and get the, almost like a clickbait, like to get the hits and to get the watches, and
And that's where it's coming back to, that this is hilarious, because Andy and I were sitting having coffee yesterday morning, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, hang on. And I start writing stuff down. He goes, what are you doing? And I said, oh no, I just got information through. And basically what they were saying is how much of spirituality is selling Santa Claus. You know, how much is it actually true? And how much is it just selling hope? The problem that I've got with it, because I think there's some really good things in selling Santa Claus. And in some ways, what you said about the police guarding against what actually happens and what we see is selling Santa Claus in a little bit of a way. And therefore, they get very criticized because we don't get to see the shit that actually really happens to know when they react to something, what is there. So, but we also are very quick to judge, and people love drama. It's just an unfortunate part of nature. But getting back to the selling Santa Claus with spirituality, it's like, you know, I've watched a few things and I can see the falsity in it. And I'm like, that person has, you know, 285,000 people watched this. And I'll read a few of the comments, and people are saying, this is amazing. This has changed my life. I'm so grateful this. I'm so grateful that in December this year, you've said that the world's going to come together and everything's going to be wonderful. And we're all going to lift up to a new level of light and all this sort of stuff. And, you know, I'm not saying that that person necessarily doesn't believe what they're saying.
But they're just sharing a message from spirit for the most part.
But in some cases they are, and they're doing it for a marketing reason. I watched a guy who does this on money and finance. He said, I know nothing about money and finance, but I just pick a topic like hurricanes, and then I put money and hurricanes in the same sentence, and I will then do AI to just research hurricanes and money, and then I will read off the script what they do it. And he has about 60,000 followers each video. Listen to what he does, right? He's a Google translator that people will, he said, it doesn't even make sense sometimes. Like, I'll cut sentences out because it won't marry with the next sentence. So don't say that. If there's something going against what you're going to say, then just cut that bit out, right? It doesn't even matter where the source comes from, as long as you've got a source for it, and you don't have to put the source down.
As long as you're hitting the right algorithm.
Yeah, then you're fine. And that's how you do it. And he said, I train a lot of people. I train a lot of spiritual people, you know, to do this method. And that hits me at the core, because number one for what we are is being authentic. And I would never say anything that misled. But then is it okay if that person has 62,000 people that now feel better, if it's not doing no damage to what they're doing? At first I was like, you know, it's selling Santa Claus. That's okay. But hang on, we're adults now.
Yeah.
It's not. The fact is, you need to be grounded. And if you're making someone follow this hope the whole time, and they actually don't go and address the reality of life because you keep saying things are going to change, everything's going to get to a new level, you'll be okay, just follow. And it's
just kind of magically going to happen for me if I just do this next energy healing or this next course or balance this chakra, it's going to be gone, and I don't actually have to do sort of that hard work.
Yeah, especially if you're falsifying what you're saying. If what is coming out of your mouth is said like that guy, parroted from someone else, or you know, said just to get the hits, then to me that is really damaging. And even if you are selling Santa Claus, even if you are selling the hope to people, if it's not authentically coming from that, you don't know the damage that you're actually doing or the impact that you're doing to that person's life. You know, it upsets me that we can no longer look at what we see and know that it's the truth. And
yes. So this just happened to me. I got an email because remember I told you that I had to update my Adobe?
Yes. Yeah.
So I updated my Adobe, and it's on a particular credit card. And I got an email that was like, oh, the credit card that you have on your Adobe is about to expire. I haven't gone and checked the expiration on this particular credit card. But my first thing was, is this real?
Yeah.
is this a real email from Adobe saying this about my credit card? Because what I could have done is I could have just gone, oh, okay, I could have opened it and I could have punched it in, and then I could have emptied my
Yeah.
entire credit card. Like, even with AI and all that other stuff that's coming in, it is getting increasingly difficult to actually believe what you're being told.
Yeah.
So
Or
what's
see, or
yes, so
see,
what's
which is even
yes.
worse. Mm.
So what Spirit's saying is make sure that the experience that you're having is real.
Yeah.
So that to me means make sure that you're actually, and I'm sorry, but it's true, you have to be in the shit. Like,
Yeah.
in order to truly experience and do the things that you're supposed to be doing, you actually have to be in the shit, right? In
Yeah.
order to grow, to get out of it. So they're saying make sure that what you're experiencing is real. And for example, there's times, well, like the policing thing, this was extremely damaging to the police. And that is not to say that policing doesn't need a bit of an overhaul and things fixed. But there's so much smoke and mirrors and so much inflammatory media that is just so unfair
Yeah.
to the good people that work hard, and it is damaging.
Yeah.
Two, there was a time, and I mean, it still happens, that Muslims are bad, and these are blanket statements. Just bear with my analogy. But when I walk out into the world, and in every experience, when I come across somebody that's Muslim, I have been treated nothing but kind and loving, caring. I have never seen anything violent, like nothing. But
Yeah.
if I flip on the TV and I watch the news for a couple nights in a row, you better bet your bottom dollar that's exactly what I'm going to see,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
inflammatory media about that particular religion. And not necessarily that one, a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a
And it
whole
depends on
bunch
where
of
you
it.
live to
Yes,
what you'll be seeing, what you'll be
yes,
shown. Yeah. It's
exactly.
marketed to you.
It's marketed. And people are watching it going, oh my God, Muslims are a problem. And I'm not picking on Muslims. I'm just using this as an example, are a problem. But like, shut off your television and experience life for yourself.
Yeah.
See things for
Make your own
yourself.
judgments.
Make your own decisions about what we should fear and what we shouldn't.
Yeah.
I turn on the news for 3 days and I'm in nothing but fear. When
Yeah.
I walk out my front door and I go out and about, there is not all that much out there that's super duper fearful, to be completely honest. Like, there's a few things, but for well, I'm talking as a normal person. I'm not talking as a police officer. But right? Like, it's fascinating. It's fascinating.
Yeah. 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 And we were looking at this. We're traveling soon to Vietnam, and I was looking at some sculpture. We're family into sculpture, and I found this guy saying that to this awesome sculpture, and I sent it to my son, and I was like, "Oh, we have to see this." And he messaged back here, "Sorry, Mum, that's AI." And I'm like, "What?" He said, "That sculpture doesn't exist. Have a look at the shadowing." And he said, "It's really well done. I can see how you wouldn't have known that. But that's just an AI built sculpture." And so then I went back onto one of the sites that I love looking at the sculpture, and I grabbed a few pictures and I sent them to him. And I said, "AI or real?" And he's like, "AI, AI, AI. That one's real. AI, AI." And I was devastated, right? Because I was like, you know, my son makes amazing, huge life-size sculptures. My husband's a beautiful sculptor. And to think that someone can actually just go on and create something on a picture, and people will say, "Well done, you're amazing." And, this is so good. For someone who actually spent a year making a piece, and, and it doesn't look as good as the other one, of course, because it's lion carved out of a tree, life
Yes.
size is, or 10 times as big as life, is amazing on AI. Of course it is. And so then I was it was like, oh, you've hit me in an area now that really hits home for me, that now I can no longer trust what I see,
Yes.
unless I experience it myself. And it made me just go, okay, I don't want to look at that stuff anymore. I don't want to look online. I just want to go and find the reality of it. I want to find the
Yes.
artist that made that. I want to understand why they made it. Not that I think there's some great stuff with AI, but I also think it's just, it's smoke and mirrors in so many
Yeah.
places, and
Yeah.
it's just trying to work out what is what. And I think in the spirituality world that we're looking at, you know, unfortunately, because people now get paid by their clicks and their followers, and they get sponsored from that, they will cross lines and start to falsify things to get the clicks and the numbers. And I would rather have 10 followers that I made a difference to their life and was authentic to, than 1,000 followers that just listened to me, it went in and out of their head because it wasn't even real. You know,
I agree.
and I think I want to watch those people who are authentic. I don't care if they've
Yeah.
got 10,000 followers or 10 followers. I want
Yeah.
them to be authentic
Well,
and
and I think that you can have both. I think that you can have a lot of followers and be
yeah,
authentic and have advertising and whatever in your content and be authentic. But
absolutely.
there's so much clickbait that's just, watch this video. And because you and I were messaging and we were like, okay, I'm not too sure what topics are coming, but these are the type of things that are dropping in. And it was like this. And then I would see these videos and it would be this particular scenario sort of playing out. And nobody stopped to think, if this is real, why is somebody videotaping it?
Yeah.
Where's the guy that's videoing this when this whole thing is happening? Like that's just magically caught on camera. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
we need to think critically. And that's not to say that I don't doom scroll on social media to relax. I do. I just you and I have talked so much about sort of the marketing and the making sure that we remain grounded and authentic in our messages, because what I and you both teach spiritually, it's what we've been taught by
Yeah.
spirit. I will often in podcasts say, I've heard teachers say this, I've heard people say this, but I don't come back and parrot it as an understanding that I have from spirit, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And you were saying before, some of some of the people that I know that I do follow have thousands of followers, hundreds of thousands of followers, and they're very authentic. And I
Hmm.
think I love that they give their time and their life to this. I think they make a difference to a lot of people. Um,
100%.
it's just that there's so many that don't, and the falsity of that is just, yeah, it's like, why do we have to sort through this shit? It's part of life that now we just have to do. It's the shit with the good,
Yeah.
thrown in our face sort of thing.
Yeah.
That kind of comes back to what we spoke about at the start a little bit, and something that a lot of people often will ask you and ask mediums in general is, how do I know if I'm on the right path? And that's the topic of this, and we've been talking about life is there to be experienced. So, I'm going to pose this question, which I know the answer in my own self, and I'm sure it's going to be the same, is, am I on the wrong path? Like, how do I know when I'm on the wrong path?
Yeah, I have definitely experienced that myself, because I've when my son was young, it was difficult and I was like, I wonder if I didn't make this one particular choice, where my life would be right now and if I would be going through all this, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And and I think like the way that they kind of show it to me is, if there's no wrong path for starters, you just don't have a wrong path. You just don't.
100%.
Yeah, you're always going to get to where you're going to get. But there's also this idea sort of parallel lives, which sort of the way that spirit shows it to me is that it's like these different kind of ways in which something can work out along this timeline. And I think either one of them is okay, because whatever it is that you're supposed to be experiencing, it's going to pop up in a different character, as opposed, like, yeah, it's going to just pop up into a different character along the way on either path. So you're still going to go through the experiences that you're
Yeah.
required to go through. But it's almost like do you remember those or maybe you didn't have them there, but it was like a choose your own adventure
Yeah,
book?
we did. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, like you could read them and then it would go to page 5 and it would say, okay, well, if you want to go into the dark woods, turn to page 8. And if you
Yeah.
want to go and visit the fairies in the garden, go to page 6. And we all know which one Nettie picked. She picked the fairies in the garden.
Okay,
right?
I
But
did.
that's kind of how they show it to me. But you have a really interesting perspective on sort of parallel lives, and you had a very interesting experience, which I can't wait for you to talk about. So go ahead.
Yeah. All right. I'll talk more kind of, I'm doing a little dream series. So anyone who's interested in the dreams, sort of go to that, but I'll briefly talk about it. And the reason I say parallel lives and dreams together, my understanding from spirit about parallel lives is that I don't think this human existence actually has parallel lives. But I do think we're presented through our dreams and through our subconscious parallel choices that could run at the same time, along with a lot of other functions that dreaming have, which I won't go into now. Part of the reason, obviously, is that it can show you if you're, say, going for a job interview and you're absolutely scared of going for new jobs. When you sleep the week before or a couple of nights before, it'll show you a whole different lot of scenarios that could, you going in for that job interview could happen. And what if I'm late? What if I get there and I lose my voice? What if I do this? So it'll show you all those things so that your fear and anxieties can actually, the energy around that can be broken down. And this is hard to do in a small amount of time, but it was quite interesting because I did a little dream video, which I'll pop up at some time. And Spirit said to me, I was sort of having this conversation with Spirit saying, okay, for the next series, I'm going to give some examples of dreams. And I'm a vivid dreamer. So I've got like bucket loads of dreams that I can talk about in all different scenarios. But last night I had a dream that a type of dream that I've never had before. And it works really in conjunction with my understanding of parallel lives or parallel dreams rather than parallel lives. And I woke up, I was telling my husband actually about the dream, and I was briefly starting to tell Tanya, and then she said, let's do this on record because it's quite interesting. So in the dream, I was an architect. I'm currently an interior designer and property business manager type thing, multi thing. And I'm married to an architect in my real life. But in my dream, I was an architect and I was my current age. I was in a field trip with another architect and an ecologist. And we were traveling around, and I hadn't met this architect before, but I'd been working with the ecologist. Anyway, I came on and I saw this guy, and instantly when I saw him, I was attracted to him in an energetic way, in a way that, you just like, I feel like I was meant to meet you. That kind of, and you just can't get your mind off. You almost lose your voice in the moment. But then when you start talking, you just flow. And we had this really good energy. Now, I'm happily married and I'm on a field trip with this guy who I'm going, oh my gosh. And so we actually, it went for several days. We traveled and we did these talks in these communities where we were going to put these eco huts that we were designing, and we would do field trips with the ecologist. And the more we would stay up at night, this guy and I, and literally talk till 3 a.m, and we had to present at 7 a.m. the next morning or be up for breakfast to go into a presentation after that. But we didn't care. We fueled each other with energy, and the sexual chemistry. Oh my God. Like I love my husband, don't get me wrong, and I find him very attractive and everything is going really well in that, but I have never had the sexual chemistry with anyone else other than my husband like I did with this guy. And it was it was a point where I was just like, oh shit, I'm going to have to separate myself from this guy because otherwise, I'm a big
I'm
thing
gonna be
on.
naughty.
Yeah, I don't believe on cheating on people. And so, but I am so close. I can see how someone would have done this. I got to that point. And so I went and I decided I was going to call my husband. It was quite late at night. So, I'm still in the dream. Okay. So I'm ringing my husband and I ring him up and say, hey, how are you? And he's like, yeah, good. Why are you ringing? I said, oh, you need to come here. He goes, why? What's happened? Why are you ringing? I said, I just need you to come here because I just need to see you. And I just, I need to know. And he's like, are you all right? And then I started to ask him questions like, um, uh, are we happy or are we, and he started to just kind of go, yeah, we're fine, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I went back into the dream and then I woke up and I was just like, oh, okay. that was a dream. I'm awake. That didn't really happen. Looked across, my beautiful, gorgeous husband is sitting next to me asleep in bed. And I'm like, okay, I didn't cheat on him in my dream. It's okay. But then I had this kind of weird sort of feeling of like, hang on a minute. I didn't recognize my husband in my dream. And I kind of, then I went back to sleep and went back into the dream again. And I rang my husband again in the dream, and I'm very good at going in and out of dreams. And I rang my husband, and he's like, you know, hi. And I'm like, hi, this might sound weird. And I started to have that conversation again. But then I started to ask, when did we meet? And he told me the date that we met, which was the day before my actual, like, that I actually had met my husband. I said, well, were you happy? And he's like, what do you mean? Do you want to separate again? And I'm like, again? Like, we never separated. And then he said we'd been separated, but I didn't want to do it again. I wanted to get back together for the girls. And I'm like, girls? Like, I've got one son. Like, how many children have we got? And he was kind of getting really freaked out by me asking all these questions. And then I saw him and I thought, that's not Andy. That's not my husband. And so I put the phone down and I walked into the other room where this guy I'd just been talking to, and I'd kind of got away from to ring my husband so that I wouldn't have sex with him. And I went back and I said, hey, Andy, which is my actual husband's name. And then I realized that this person that I was talking to was my husband, Andy, who had been married, got divorced because his wife had cheated on him. He had no children. He was an architect, which he is in his current degree, but he was dressed in a suit, like he never wears suits. He's on the land all the time. He drove a really flashy car, which he drives an absolute paddock bomb. You know, he was just not him, but he was him. And we still had this electric chemistry and we had all this sort of stuff. So we started to talk about our lives and how they had passed over and all the memories that we'd had, that we actually lived in a town near each other. And so we had childhood memories before we knew each other. We still had those. And he said, I wish I met you like when we were younger. I think we would have ended up together. If you ever leave your husband, I'm here. I would never cheat on with a married person. You know, like, I don't believe in that because it happened to me. It was really harmful. So anyway, I woke up and I was telling my husband, you know, this thing. It was quite an interesting story, but it was like Spirit was showing me a parallel life that they had showed me back, you know, 33 years ago. And I had chosen a path to go. And interestingly, I actually was meant to meet a guy before I met my husband. And that's while I was going to Phillip Island to see this guy. And I got my days mixed up. And we got down there at the meeting point. He wasn't there. My friend that was with me said, hey, why don't we just go and catch up with my friend who lives in Phillip Island, which was Andy. And we ended up going and meeting and we got married, right? So I was presented this life of what would have happened. And I was happy in this life and I was in a good career and I seemed to have all my shit together, but I definitely didn't have this love and this energy that I have with my husband now. It was surreal. Like I mean, I've had millions of dreams. I am like every single night dreamer and multi-dreamer, but this to me was, you know, it was almost
Fascinating.
like Spirit telling me you're on the right track. There was other paths you could have had and life would have been good. And you probably did
But
come
you
across this.
still would have bumped into Andy.
Yes, 33 years later. Yes, which is 34 years later. Insane. You know, and it shows me that whatever path I was on was the right path. That Spirit did put things in front of me and Spirit did guide me to this path. And for this life, I've been with someone that my marriage and my partner, he's more than a marriage. He's not a marriage. Don't even think about that. My soulmate throughout my life
Right.
it has made my life so much more complete and got me to a place where I now do all this energy work for free. And I'm helping so many people for free because I've been put in this position. And I can see in that other life, I wouldn't have been in there. I was
Right.
definitely working hard still. I needed to. I was probably being able to do energy work, but not in a way that I can today. And so I can
Right.
see that I was guided, but I could have easily I could have even easily gone the
The
other day.
thing that's so fascinating about it is because we always say you're going to get there anyways. And
Yes.
with Andy sort of being like your soulmate, you would have gotten to him anyways. Like you still would have
Yeah.
gotten with him.
And maybe I would have left my husband then and ended up with Andy and been doing
Oh, I
and
think you
without,
would have.
yeah, and we were both quite financially okay. He was definitely very financially well off. Like the car that he drove was, you know, we could have
Fancy
sold that and
pants.
we could have lived off the car, you know, like,
Yeah.
which is so not him. Seriously, his car's worth $3,000 and he's a paddock bomb, you know, and he can buy. We
Yeah.
have enough money to buy whatever he wants, and he still buys
Yeah.
that. So
Okay, but
it
hold
just.
on. I have to interrupt you. You have to translate a paddock bomb.
Oh, okay. A car that really shouldn't be on the road. You should just have it in on your farm. So they're called
But what's
paddock
a
bombs.
paddock? Like because like a barn
A
paddock
paddock,
type thing?
yeah, a paddock is a farm, like a
Yeah, yeah,
grass
yeah.
farm area. So
Gotcha.
it's a car that should really be only used in a paddock to go around
Okay,
on a farm, but you put it on the road. So we call them
gotcha.
paddock
Paddock
bombs.
bombs.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is fascinating because people will talk about sort of like bouncing timelines. And I have to say that I have had that experience where all of a sudden I'll be like, whoa, everything kind of shifted and changed. Everything feels a little bit off and different. And I think that's because like we've talked about before off camera, that you make that choice and it steers you into sort of different directions.
Yeah. And in my case, this was familiar. This was weirdly familiar, like a deja vu in moments of us talking. And he said something like that he had said when we had just met at this time. And I remember when he said that, I was like, oh, deja vu. Like, but it was
Right.
him at 17 saying that same line that he said there. And and which was kind of confirming the stuff that I believed in deja vus. Was deja vus, we have seen them before. We've been presented to them with spirit, with all these different parallel lives, and our minds, for people like us who can get downloads in multiple things, like a download that I got, if you listen to series 2, it's all about a download that Tania and I like kind of hash out. And
Mm-hmm.
Tania brings in these awesome experiences of her life throughout them. But
Woo, lucky me, lucky
lived,
me.
you're the grounding. But you know, it's like um, the whole deja vu, you know, like you have seen it before because spirit gave you those options and those choices and those sort of parallel lives. And oh,
Yep.
that's what I was saying with the download. I got in half an hour enough download that I couldn't write in a year. So, you
Yep.
know, our dreams that you don't remember, you can dream lifetimes, multiple lifetimes, you know, in your
Mm-hmm.
mind in a year,
Mm-hmm.
in a night, in a thing. We just don't consciously, we can't process that consciously. So every now and then something will just match up and it'll be like, oh, hang on, that triggered in my brain as a memory that I've seen it before. Or you're about to walk in a room and go, last time I walked into this room, there was 3 guys standing there with badges. And then you walk in the room and there's 3 guys with badges and you're like, oh shit, what's
Oh my
happened? You
God,
know,
I've been here
there's been an
before.
accident or
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
like, but hang on a minute, that I've seen that moment before. Why have I seen that? And spirit was getting you ready for that moment. It's a big moment. It was, you know, there's been an accident and your neighbor's been injured and or whatever happens. And, you know, so you like spirit does actually give you these dreams and these whole things to prepare you. So deja vus are real, and to look out for signs in your life where you go, oh, that's familiar, that feels right, and
Yeah.
actually follow your gut on it.
Which which exactly is what they're saying, is to sort of wrap all of this into a pretty little bow, is that gut nudge
Yes.
in us of, okay, this feels right, and getting connected into your body and how does this feel, and just checking in to see how something feels
Yeah.
to know what sort of the right choice is. Now, we don't just go with feel though, then we got to click back into logic and,
Yeah.
mull it around like, does this actually work for me kind of thing. But yeah, I think that's awesome. Do you have anything else to add here, Nettie?
No, I think we've covered a lot. I think,
A
you know,
lot.
but I think the underlying thing is, no, you're not on the wrong path.
Yeah, you can't be.
You can't be. Yeah.
Yeah, and life is meant to be experienced as difficult at times that is to hear, because I know, like, I would get readings in spirit, or even they would come through to me and they would be like, all is well, Tanya, all is well, and I would be like, fuck you.
Yeah.
It is not all well. This is not well. But from
Yeah.
their perspective, it is. But anywho, thank you all so much for being here. And please like and subscribe. Subscribing is very important because when we get to see those numbers go up, I get very happy and I'm slightly addicted to the YouTube analytics. So please make it more exciting for me.